Hyperborea, the search of the ancient lost civilization. Now remember, I've many times posted videos concerning Alexander the Great. The chronicler stated that he had gone into the Taklamakan desert of China. That's the desert where you go in, but you never come out because it's so dangerous. He lost a third of his warriors there, over 10,000 of them, and he is claimed to have gone there because he was to receive a very advanced technical weapon that he was to receive from someone who was to land there with a UFO, an extraterrestrial Atlantean Hyperborean. And it was supposed to have been what is something like the lightning rod of Zeus, a copy of which is in one of the Hindu temples of the Himalayas. So obviously the ancient texts concerning Alexander the Great do reference to Hyperboreans who were supposedly Atlanteans and extraterrestrials. In the far north, Hyperborea, among the frozen expanses of the North Pole, legend speaks of an ancient and almost forgotten civilization. Mythically, the Hyperborean civilization is said to have flourished in the northern sector of the earth at a time when those regions were still habitable. According to certain esoteric systems and spiritual traditions, Hyperborea was the beginning of any civilization, the house of the first man. Some theories state that Hyperborea was the Garden of Eden itself, the point where the earthly and celestial spheres of existence meet. Madame Blavatsky, founder of the Theosophical Society, said that the second race inhabited Hyperborea before the later races of Lemuria and Atlantis. Russian parapsychologist Alexander Dugin says that Hyperborea was the home of the solar people, quote unquote, and connected it to the area where Russia is now. As Dugin explains, sun people are creatively energetic and spiritual. It is the opposite of the lunar people, a psycho-spiritual type of people who are materialistic and opponents of change. The ancient Greeks have their own myth about Hyperborea, the land of everlasting sun beyond the north wind. Hecatius mentions that this holy place of the Hyperboreans, which was created according to the plan of the spheres, is located beyond the land of the Celts and on the island in the ocean. And according to reports, the temple of god Apollo at Delphi was founded by the inhabitants of Hyperborea. One custom that can be attributed to Hyperboreans is the custom that was decorated with a star. The figures of the sun, moon, and stars were decorated with gold or blue silk. Such costumes were worn by the kings of ancient Rome and Julius Caesar, as well as the Roman emperors. The collapse of Hyperborea. One of the most popular theories of the collapse of Hyperborea is a natural destruction of the Earth's axis. According to the theory, man's violation of the divine law caused a mutation in the metaphysical balance, the consequence of which was a destruction of the Earth's sphere. Julius Evola, Italian occultist, explains that at that point the first circle of history closed and the second, Atlantis, began. The revival of Hyperborea. The myth of Hyperborea was revived during the 18th and 19th century with a series of books that referred to the idea that the first civilization appeared not in the Middle East, but somewhere else. The popular theory was that Europeans were superior and more intelligent than people of the Middle East, and for this reason civilization could not have developed in the Middle East. The French were convinced that Eden was on some higher level. The Germans, likewise, who were looking for Aufklärung, believed that they had history in the Mediterranean Middle Eastern regions, with the new sources of knowledge from ancient Egypt, Chaldea, China, and India. The researchers were on dangerous paths trying to discover the origins of man. The spiritual pole. In searching for the natural location of Hyperborea, most writers have dismissed the possibility that the mythology served a highly symbolic and spiritual purpose. But if the truth behind the myth of Hyperborea was internal and not external, as many believe even today, Many traditions speak of a supreme spiritual center or spiritual land. This spiritual land is not necessarily located in any particular place on earth, but exists in a primordial form inseparable from floods and earthly disasters. This land symbolized a pole as polar is symbolically always represented in the axis of the world and in most cases referred to as the Holy Mountain. René Guénon, in his book The Lord of the World, states, almost every tradition has some name for this mountain, such as the Indian Meru, the Persian Al-Borj. Then there is also the Arabian mountain Kaf and the Greek Olympus, which is in many ways of equal importance. These are the compositions of a region which, like heaven, is no longer available to common humanity and which cannot be affected by the cataclysms which disturb the human world and mark the end of a cyclic period. This region is the original superland, which, according to texts, was originally located at the North Pole. Even if its location changes according to the different phases of human history, it always remains polar in a symbolic sense, and this because it represents the axis around which everything moves. Vedic records state that this supreme land is known as Paradesha, also known as the heart of the world. It is the world from which the gods created paradise of the West. There is also another name for Paradisha, paradise. It is Tula, which comes from the Greek Thuli, Thula, representing the primordial form from which the spiritual power emanated. It's also known that the Mexican Tula owes its existence to the Toltecs who came, as it is said, from Aztlan, the land in the middle of the water, which apparently refers to Atlantis. On the other hand, the Atlantean Tula must be separated from the Hyperborea Tula, which represents the first and supreme center. In this case, Tula represents a center of spiritual ascension and is not assimilated to the geographical location. The Atlantean cycle, according to Guénon, which succeeds the Hyperborean, is related to Tula. Atlantis Tula is the image of the primordial state located in the polar location. In the Buddhist tradition, the word Chakravarti literally means he who makes the wheel turn, he who is at the center of all things and directs the entire movement without himself participating. The turning of the world, the pole, and the axis combine to form a wheel in Celtic, Chaldaic, and Indian tradition. Of such importance is the symbol of the swastika, which is literally the sign of the pole. The search for transcendent is itself the search for spiritual enlightenment. The mountain, the island, the immovable rock that stands at the pole contains the symbolic representation of our search for the supreme reality. And the original article is published in New Dawn magazine number 58. Please leave your comments and thank you for your support. Please support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.